Presented by Revolution Radio, broadcasting live from the Roanoke Valley of southwestern Virginia. Join us and see what life looks like from a medium's perspective with Reverend Tracey Lockwood, the medium's medium. We'll explore the tools of psychic development, hear stories and experiences from the other side, and learn to listen to our natural intuition. Now, our host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today, you're going to be delighted with our guest when I get to reveal her to you. First, I just wanted to take care of some business and let you know that I have created a plethora of training opportunities for you. Many of them are taught via live webinar with me personally in group situations or privately, but I also have some independent training options that have been created. And I'm going to be doing some workshops here and there around and about in the US. So if you're interested in the possibility of developing your gifts, please feel free to visit my website at mediumtracylockwood.com, and you'll find more information on Meetup, Facebook, etc. Well, you know the world has been changing. And everyone out there is going, duh. And some of the energies have been really stressful for us as intuitives and sensitives as we move forward in time and try to dust off our gifts and brighten our lights so that we can handle some of these energy shifts. And today's guest is going to talk to us about how science, magic, and shamanism can help support our spiritual evolutionary process that the planet is going through, and for us, particularly here in the West. So I want to tell you a little bit about her. She is the founder and director and owner of Path Home Shamanic Art School, and that's in Colorado. And she has studied at the University Colorado School of Medicine and is a preceptor for them. She provides instruction to medical doctors on the modern interface between shamanism and allopathic medicine, a very much needed arena because so many of us are trying to minimize our contact with unnecessary medications, etc., but sometimes getting that balance right between holistic alternatives and more conventional medicine is really quite a balance. So she's right in the hub of what's going on with that. She has studied shamanism for over 40 years and practiced for at least 30, and she's taught the shamanic arts since 1996. You might be asking, some of you out there might not be familiar with what a shaman is or what shamanism is or something like that. And it's basically an indigenous or traditional healing, intuitive and prophetic art. She'll be talking more about that and details and how that integrates. She also conducts workshops and seminars all around the world, and she's an inspirational speaker and singer-songwriter. I had the pleasure of being on her radio show, and she has an international radio show called The Science of Magic, which is just a phenomenal show and brings all kinds of information to us that might be interested. She's also a consultant for shamanic affairs at Relmar Media Company. And I'm just tickled to bring to you today, Gwilda Wiyaka. Welcome, Gwilda.
Thank you for having me, Tracey. It's fun to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy. And I know a lot of you out there are a little nosy like I am. You want to find out a little bit about the speaker while the show's going on. So you can find her website and find out more information while the show's going or afterwards at gwildawiyaka.com. That's GWILDAWIYAKA.com. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
I want to know just because I know everybody is like, what your definition of shamanic arts would be. How do you view that?
Well, I view it a little differently than most. It's been around for between 40 and 60,000 years. Nobody's really sure how long. And it's at the base of every indigenous people, and we're all indigenous at one point or another.
Absolutely.
But as I've studied it over the years, I've finally come to recognize that what it actually is an organized set of rituals that helps the practitioner manage matter at the quantum level of life. And people say, well, quantum physics is new. Well, no, quantum physics is not new. Our discovery of quantum physics is new.
Word. Absolutely.
But the shamanic practitioners and shaman have been working with matter at the quantum level for millennia, and never has it been more needed, because now as we're moving into a time where things are speeding up and the rules are changing, being able to go out into the quantum level and see what's coming at us and find our sweet spot within it is hugely important.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about the quantum level. I talk about the other side, the subtle realms, the energy matrix. What are you meaning specifically by that for our listeners?
Well, yeah, all the above, Tracy, because the quantum level is the level where the push-pull of life happens before it becomes manifest physically. So really, if we want to get kind of technical about it, it's everything that isn't physical. And if we think of even our bodies, 90.99999 is not physical. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It really covers a large area, and it's a fairly new science. Einstein and his cronies were playing with it clear back when. And but it's really starting to uncover some amazing things, and it's really where science and magic meet.
Oh, that's great. For you, you mentioned in your bio that you've been studying it for about 40 years. What was the very first thing that triggered your interest in that? How did you find it?
Yeah, it was one of those, comedy of errors. Thank God for it. I came into the world pretty sensitive, and like you probably did. But
yeah.
I also grew up in a situation that was very volatile and dangerous, very dangerous people around me. So when I was very, very young, I learned to really keep my intuition on high so I could tell what was about to happen around me, what the emotions were in the people around me, so I could kind of dodge, if you will.
Understood.
Unfortunately, I didn't find the volume knob. So by the time I was in my 20s and early 20s and in college, I was getting everybody's everything, and I didn't know what was mine and what wasn't. And I'm a casualty of the 70s and 60s and 70s, right? So everybody was doing drugs, and I was getting contact highs, and my adrenals were frying. I was not doing well. And I was putting myself through school, and I was working at this truck stop. And one evening, as I was closing down the part of the kitchen, an elderly couple came in. It was raining outside, and I opened the door and let them in because I'd locked it. And they were a Native American couple, and their pickup had broken down, and they needed to call his brother to come get them. Well, that was in the day and age. There was no such thing as cell phones. There was the indoor payphone, right? So I reach in my pocket, I hand him a dime, and he calls his brother. And then they're going to go stand out in the rain. And I think, that's ridiculous. I've got coffee here I'm just going to throw away. And, pie, there's a piece of pie left. So I sat them down and gave them the coffee and the pie and went on about my business of closing up the shop. Well, when his brother pulls up outside, he walks over to me and he takes my hand. And this guy's in his 80s, right? He takes my hand and he puts this napkin in it. And he said, "You'll need that. Use it." And turns around and walks away. I thought, is there something on my face? What?
Booger?
Booger what? But when I got to looking at it in this scrawled print in pencil was a phone number. And that was it. And it wasn't a week later when my situation with my intuition and everything was just taking me down. And I was going through my purse. I was in despair, and I found that napkin. And so I called him, and I went into training with him. And I trained with him for over 6 years until he crossed over. He was my first teacher. He was a Lakota elder.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, clear back then you wouldn't have thunk, huh?
Well, when you consider millennium, I guess it's feasible, but yes, it's not an average experience, and not in the Western mind. of things that would occur during that time. Absolutely. I've got a tangential question related to that. This is really a serious issue for a lot of people that possibly are listening, that they are opened up. And of course, my job is to help people open up and learn to protect themselves and all that kind of thing. But I do get a lot of people that are just like, oh my God, it's like TMI. Is there like a drug that I can take to shut this down? Is there a technique? What would you say to them that are experiencing that overload from the non-physical or quantum TMI situation? What would you advise them?
Well, when you've got a drumstick, everything looks like a drum. But shamanism is a beautiful form. Meditation is a great form too, but shamanism teaches tools to create sacred space, so you can encapsulate your environment, so you can stay in a higher frequency environment than a lot of the stuff that's bombarding you, so that you can learn to manage your skills, turn them on or off, find that volume knob. And it's really what saved me. So therefore, I recommend it.
Yeah, you're so natural, and I'm so natural in our ability that sometimes we just kind of naturally do that. So it is, what I'm thinking too, a matter of separating your vibration so that you retain more focus within a certain energy spectrum. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, shaman are frequency masters, and everything that we're experiencing here in the energetic realm is about frequency.
Yeah.
And when we're all in the process of evolving spiritually right now, whether we choose to or not, we're at least being bombarded with the opportunity, because the Earth is moving, the sun is moving into a higher, more charged area of the galaxy, and that charge is hitting the sun's heliosphere, and it's creating more plasma, or more luminosity and brightness, and that's bathing interplanetary space. So basically, the frequency on all the planets in the solar system is rising. With it, we're being bombarded with more broad spectrum frequency. And that's where our intuition rides. So even people that didn't think of themselves as intuitive before are starting to get information, and they just put it off. Oh, it's just my imagination or this or that. If we can learn to navigate the frequency scale at will, and that's what shamanism is all about,
yes,
we can choose where we're hearing, when we're hearing, what we're experiencing, or when to just give it a break. And that way we can start to learn to afford people their privacy too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's an inherent part of, I don't really like the term psychic development just because it feels kind of archaic to me. I don't know, and like a label. But in psychic development and mediumship development, that is the process of discernment and, classification and focus to tune out and tune in. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's really important to recognize that we're always being bombarded by frequency. And some of the frequency is the programming that we get. Whether it's through the media or otherwise, that's trying to hold the old reality in place. And that old reality is beyond its shelf life. So if we don't evolve beyond it, we're kind of in trouble as a species, and for that matter, as a planet. So I think it's really important that we look at it at this time.
Yeah, I think it is important to address it. And there's so many people out there working on that, or wanting to work on that, or discovering they better work on that too. I just want to clarify a term that was used in your bio, because some people may not know what that is. So what is a preceptor? You're a preceptor for the University Colorado School of Medicine. Is that what you were talking about the working as an interfacer, or what?
Yeah, what goes on there is the docs that are just about to graduate that are interested in holistic medicine take this complementary medicine course. And within the complementary medicine course, there are representatives of different branches of complementary or alternative medicine. I can't hardly think of shamanism as alternative. It's been around so long, but you get the idea.
Right. Well, for the Western mind, it's
there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. And so what I do is I teach the doctors what's going on, how to interface with shamanism when you know you need it, what it really does, what medical intuitive is, because that's a shamanic skill. and what soul loss looks like, and how when the person, you start chasing symptoms around, the base of the illness may very well be a spiritual one. Well, it always is in one point or another, and then filters down. But just really opening their eyes to that aspect of healing, and they've just been so receptive. These new docs coming on, it's very exciting.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very cool. So you've been able to sort of debunk some of the prejudice or I don't know, misunderstanding toward energetic arts and healing.
Yeah, what happened there, Tracy, is we, because we've gone through a darker time in the galaxy where we were moving through, we haven't had that much light to see by, and everything got pretty dogmatic. Religion got dogmatic, science got dogmatic, and so did shamanism. And so shamanism has been reduced to this arguing, I call it peeing on the lodge pole, arguing over what ritual is the real ritual, when really the ritual is just the vehicle. The destination is the quantum level.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not the tool, it's the outcome. Absolutely. Right. Yes.
But then that left people viewing us as these bone-shaking, chicken-killing, crazy people screaming wild incantations and waving sage around.
Right.
And really
there's just the superficial view of what's been created energetically. Yeah.
Those were the rituals that were designed around primitive peoples. They don't have to look like that, but you better know what's making them work before you rock the boat. And that's what I've been about, is holding to the principles, the tried and true principles, but changing the face of them. Like when I do an extraction, my Tibetan teacher wanted me to swallow a bowl of worms. I said, "To heck you say, I'm not going to swallow that bowl of worms. What do you want me to swallow those worms for?" And he said, "Because you have to vomit them back up in front of your client to prove you've pulled something out." And I said, "But what I'm pulling out is energetic." He says, "I know that, and you know that, but they need proof." I'm thinking, there's got to be a better way.
There's got to be a better way. Yes.
And that's when I learned to start, because my background's scientific, that's when I learned to just start saying, okay, here's the science behind it. Here's what we're really doing. And our people of today really prefer that to the bowl of worms, I've found.
Oh yeah, and your clients as well. We don't. No. So, are you a medical intuitive, or would you consider that a component of shamanic skill?
Well, it's just like, being a medium or an intuitive. It's all a matter of degree and where your skill set lie. But I'm a very strong medical intuitive. I've worked with doctors for years and years, interfaced them with for years, and they've been very fascinated. So they're always liking to put gum in my hair and measure my brain waves and see what's really going on when I'm working. And I consistently can change my brain waves.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, consistently.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's part of what the ritual is, to go into the shamanic journey trance. Well, the other thing I've been able to do is I can look into a person's body. And because I was working with all these doctors, they have substantiated what I was seeing with MRIs and CAT scans very consistently. I have about a 98% accuracy.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And I'm not surprised. A lot of people wonder, can you be 100% accurate? And yeah, it just takes discipline and development, to do that too. But that's incredible. And what an affirming field that you're in too, to be able to see what you're viewing psychically, I guess, or intuitively borne out in.
Yeah, to see it substantiated.
I always love when that happens.
I've worked with biofeedback people and everything, and it's just amazing how accurate it is. But there's one thing I have to say, it's a caveat, is I'm no smarter than an MRI. Okay. So I might be getting the information, but I don't do it for people off the street. I do it for doctors, for their people. And, but then the way the laws are, the doctors still have to do the MRIs and the CAT scans, or their licenses up for grabs.
Yeah, but you can intuit the source or where to look, or, the beginning of the process, sort of the either causative or, I don't know. And I know we have to all be careful about not diagnosing or prescribing, because that's outside the realm of our expertise as intuitives and sensitives and mediums and psychics, Yeah.
But within the realm, we can be so useful to each other, the medical doctors and the magical people, because there is a place where it interfaces. There is a place where it meets. And to be able to triangulate the information, plus, because I'm not bound by time and space. I can cast forward and see what a condition is going to look like untreated, and cast backward and see, like you said, where it started. So because we're not bound totally by time and space, that adds a whole new element that the MRI doesn't have.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, we aren't bound by time and space. And that's an interesting technique too, to project forward. If it goes forward, what would I see? That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I know, like I've sometimes gotten things very basic because I don't have the level of medical awareness that you do, but I know one time I heard that somebody's pH was off and he went and checked it, and that was the root cause of many of his disorders. So that was a positive thing. And you go beyond that, I'm sure, with as closely as you work with them.
Yeah, I've been very blessed because, like you say, getting the feedback from the instrumentation has refined the art for me.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, not only do you work in that arena, but you're also a writer. Tell us a little bit about what you've created in the field of shamanism, astrology, astronomy, physics, anatomy,
all that fun stuff,
chakras, indigenous legends, and shamanic practices. I've got a list here. I was like, wow. How many books have you written, and are you working on one now, or?
Yes, actually, I'm working on one now. I have the first one out was So We're Still Here Now. Well, it's not the first one. It was the first. I've written all the curriculum and the texts and workbooks for the Path Home Shamanic Art School. And it's a Colorado State certified occupational school. So it has to be very precise. So I've done a lot of that kind of writing. But then I did a book called So We're Still Here Now What? Spiritual Evolution and Personal Empowerment in a New Era. And that really combined a lot of the things that I've learned and where we're going right now and what's going on planet-wide and why it's going on and what we can expect and how we can move with the times as individuals and en masse. And that's what that book's about. It's a very rich book. I've someone says it's very condensed too. And then the latest one I did is called The Science of Magic Book of Mysteries, Volume 1. And I'm working on Volume 2 right now. And what it is a collection. I do these teachings at the opening, or have been doing these teachings at the opening of the radio show, that then enfold the guest material and gives us a springboard. And those teaching, I kept the guests and different, listeners would say, hey, can I have a transcript of that, please? I want to read it again. And so I created a collection, and it's based on topic matter, and put it in that book. So that's The Science of Magic Book of Mysteries, Volume 1.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And then I've written workbook on how to do the shamanic journey and how to set sacred space. So shamanic journey is in touch with spirit, and the sacred space is sanctuary. And it's all available on Amazon.
Yeah, thank you so much. When I am aware, but I just for people that might be curious, when you talk about shamanic journeying, how would you describe that?
Shamanic journeying is it's one thing that's common to all shamanic practices, and it's an altered state of consciousness. And it's, like I said, it's measurable. My brain waves drop down to the alpha brain waves drop down to 7.5 hertz, which is that of the planet, and then I slid on into high theta. So it's like an interactive dream. Yeah. And in that interactive dream, there's a representation of what's going on at the quantum level of life, painted in the imagination in metaphorical form. And then the key is being able to bring that information back, journal it down, and then translate it into the linear mind. So it's a whole mechanism by which we can access and interpret what's happening at the quantum level, what we're about to create, and find our sweet spot in it. But also, it's a method that I can go in and change what's going on at the quantum level. So say, for instance, spiritual illness is when a person is disconnected from some of their bandwidth of frequency through trauma. Post-traumatic shock stress disorder is an example. And I can go in and find where they've disconnected and attune them back to it, which actually changes their quantum level abilities.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So one of the things, the focus of the show we thought about doing was, how shamanism can help in the spiritual evolution of people. We've got just a couple of minutes before we go to the bottom of the hour, so we may carry it over, but Give me some of your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, what happens when we experience trauma, and we've all gone through it, is we are designed to absolutely do whatever it takes to not recreate the trauma. That's how we survive as a species, right?
Mhm.
But the problem is, in so doing, we're either a child without full information or a traumatized adult, and we make a judgment as to what caused the problem and disconnect from that expression. And it may or may not be right. And then we blanket it, make it blanket covering that judgment against every activity. Well, there's a time and a place for everything. Maybe it was an inappropriate time to use that frequency, but it wasn't inappropriate to have the frequency. We continue to disconnect from these frequencies until we become very monodimensional, and we lose a lot of our personal power. We lose a lot of our intuition, and eventually there's a frequency below which we can't maintain physical health. Now, the planet is being bombarded with these higher frequencies, and there's this huge discrepancy between where we are, because we haven't had shamanic healing, and where the planet is going, and it's putting a lot of stress on us. So walking our way back out of that frequency handicap is what shamanism can provide.
Yeah, it's all in the perspective, isn't it? And also the energy shift of that. When you work with people, and how do they sustain that shift, or is it a permanent shift?
Well, again, it's a voluntary thing. I can do all the correction at the frequency level I want, but unless the person does the emotional, mental, and physical work around it, it's not going to manifest in their lives. And so I really coach them through that process, because we haven't done this for years, so people don't automatically know how to do it. But it's a lot of processing, and at the same time, it is so miraculous how quickly and effectively it can change your life.
Yeah, it really is, and how I liked what you said, the way that you said it. When we have a trauma and we do attribute our dysfunction or disability based on that, we might absolutely be mislabeling. And it's interesting to look back with fresh eyes on the past and on things that happened. And a lot of times we miss our own personal power. We miss our role that we played in creating that circumstance, and seeing it and feeling it from a fresh energy level is really amazing. Thank you so much. For those people that are listening, I just wanted to refresh her website in your mind. It's gwildawiyaka.com. And Gwilda, we'll go ahead and start, but we may be slapped down here by the station break in a sec. But what would you say? I guess I want to say, how does shamanism aid in our evolution as a whole, like as a culture?
Well, like I said, the problem that we're facing right now is that throughout the long dark, we became very low frequency through damage that's been passed down. It's in our DNA even. It's been passed down for generations. Shamanism can correct those frequency imbalances. The more of us that correct them, the more the frequency and the better off we are.
On a collective level. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I am looking forward to connecting after the bottom of the hour here, and we'll talk soon.
Now, back to our show, from a medium's perspective, with host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Thank you for having me, Tracey. It's so much fun working with you.
Oh, thank you. Ditto. Dit to the O. When I think of shamans, I think about nature, because of the natural systems that this method of interacting with the universe evolved through. And I know that we're really disconnected from nature as a whole. I mean, some of us like to sun, and some of us like to get out and take a walk or a jog, but it's not unusual with the stress of life for people to just miss that it's a seasonal change, that it's gone from spring to summer. And, so what other negative effects do you think is going on for people with this disconnect that we have from nature?
I'm glad you brought it up, Tracey, because it's absolutely huge. Someplace along the line, we decided nature was something we had to conquer. and that the light time and the dark time wasn't good enough for us. We had to have artificial lights, and that the food wasn't good enough the way it came. We had to process it and GMOize it and chemicalize it and all that stuff. On every aspect where we have gotten away from the natural order, it has been and continues to be to our extreme detriment. So say, for instance, we lock ourselves inside. We're in front of computers and electronics, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But our pineal gland totally depends on the natural light and the natural rhythms of light that we tend to forget seasonally and this and that. Also, our bodies do better if they are exposed to colder. Like, I leave my temperature down in my house in the winter, and I don't use air conditioning in the summer. And at first I'm going, yuck, that's uncomfortable. But eventually my comfort range widened and my health improved because of it.
Wow.
The further we get away from walking through the woods, aromatherapy is a natural occurring thing if you're out there brushing up against plants. And it's amazing how that actually recalibrates and rebalances you to the ambient frequency of the planet. And we just talked about how the sun's heliosphere is getting more luminosity and brightness that's bathing interplanetary space, that's then going directly through the electromagnetic fields. So from the sun's electromagnetic field into the Earth's electromagnetic field, into the core of the Earth, the iron core of the Earth, this frequency is being fed.
Yeah.
She is raising her frequency. If we're detached from that, we aren't raising naturally also. And pretty soon the discrepancy becomes extremely stressful on our physical forms, as well as all our levels, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So the more disconnected we are from the natural light, from natural foods, from natural clear water, from walking on the planet, the bottoms of our feet have acupuncture points and meridians that are designed to interface with the planet. And how long has it been since you've been out there barefoot,
Right.
So our illness, I truly believe that most of our modern day illness are from every place that we've disconnected or distorted the natural order.
Yeah, that's really a great perspective. I like very much the way that you show that. That's very, very cool. Do you, so I guess by using shamanic technique and tradition, that helps us connect? Or what do you think?
It really does.
The benefits are.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways that we really do need to pay attention to at this time to give our bodies physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual best opportunity they have to raise frequency with the times. And it's everything from watching our diet, from being mindful to expose ourselves to natural light, from being mindful to be outdoors when we can, all of that stuff. To our thought forms, to what information we expose ourselves to, all of that has a big interplay. But here's the kicker. NASA's actually discovered this. There's an electromagnetic or toroidal field around all heavenly bodies. The core of the Earth is iron, and we have a toroidal field going around the Earth that interfaces with the electromagnetic field that goes around the sun. Every place the sun's field crosses the Earth's field creates what NASA is calling X points. Those X points are actually wormholes, shortened distances between time and space. Unfortunately, they are unpredictable, so NASA's got all these probes out there trying to find them, find them in action. But they have substantiated that they exist. Well, the same is true of everything. I have an electromagnetic field around me. My heart creates it. And you have an electromagnetic field around you.
Yes.
Our chakra systems interface with that. Water, the element water has an electromagnetic field. The tree has an electromagnetic field. Every place our electromagnetic fields cross is a wormhole or an X point or an access between time and space. And that's the vehicle shamans have used for millennia to journey back and forth to find information. And it's going on all the time. But if we aren't attuned to ourselves, in balance within ourselves, we can't access all that is. And that is our access point between all that is. And it's a frequency issue.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like, the more I learn, the less I know, but the more I learn, the more interesting it gets, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just recently learned from reading an old manuscript from C.W. Ledbetter, a writer around the turn of the 1800s to 1900s, about, this process that we go through of our chakras serving like an interface between the two. And it makes sense. I mean, if we're, like you said, 99 point whatever % non-physical, then how do we communicate with that aspect of ourself? And it's cool to think about those centers operating that way. And this, I've seen different sketches of different things, on Facebook and on Google and stuff, looking at the energy fields of people, the Taurus type energy, or the just the matrix of interesting energy points. It's fascinating, really fascinating. When you're working with someone, are you clairvoyantly seeing those points? Do you sense them energetically? How do you identify if somebody's points are clogged up or misaligned, or how do you feel it?
What I do is, with their permission and helping them set their intent on what they're trying to get at, because we've all got places that are stuck, right?
Sure.
What's important is what's standing between you and what you want to create at any given time, what you want to experience.
Nice.
And so I'll have them come up with an intention and bottom line before we do the session. So the intention is what they hope to achieve. The bottom line is the conditions under which they hope to achieve it. In other words, given I'd like to live in joy, abundance, ease, longevity, and good health. Okay.
That's within, a lot for a day. Yeah.
Exactly. Within that, I would like to, whatever you fill in the blank, right?
Right.
So then that directs the journey that I go on. So I don't see everything that's going on with them at any given time. I see, because of that discipline, I'm taken to what's standing between them and what they've intended, because this work runs off of the person's intent, if you know how to use it that way.
It does.
And so it takes me to where they're clogged. And what's so interesting right now, Tracey, is with this increased luminosity that the planet's being bathed in, our chakric systems are evolving. We're getting more chakras, or waking up more chakras, okay? Say, for instance, what we thought was junk DNA. Nope. God don't make no junk.
That's right.
It's not
right.
junk DNA.
That's right.
It's inactive, but now it's coming online. It's becoming activated. And we're developing skills and information that it's just increasing exponentially every day. So It's really a fascinating time to be alive.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm happy to hear you say it, professional to professional. I often ask people when they come for a reading to create a list of questions that they want me to focus on, because first of all, it does set their intent, which makes it easier to find that trail of information that's helpful to them. But also, there's just no way. I mean, if somebody just sits down and gives me a blank stare and says, read me, I'm like, well, let's see. Would we like to look at past lives? Would we like to look at, or
about that affair you're having?
Or do you want to look at relationships, or you want to talk to dead people? Like, what you want to do? You pick, I'll do it.
Yeah. Where exactly on Indra's net do you want me to dance here?
Right. And that's so interesting with the healing work that you do. That's just really cool. So humans are evolving. I guess there's changes and inevitable, right? So how would you define human evolution, I guess?
Well, I think it's a participatory thing. I don't think it's just going to naturally happen. The less we evolve with the times, the more pressure that's put on us. And quite frankly, the less we're going to last. Because if we're moving against the way life is working, you know who's going to win on that little equation, right? Mm-hmm. And pretty soon the stress is going to be pretty hard on us and probably shorten our lifespan, those of us that choose not to participate. As we continue to evolve as a species, in other words, our frequency raise, we have access to greater bandwidths of frequency. Our intuition, all of these seemingly esoteric abilities are going to blossom more and more and more. More information is going to be available to us. And then we can start changing the way that we are living on the planet. And if we don't do that pretty soon, we're going to be in trouble anyway.
Yeah, we're not really taking care of Mother Earth very much right now, or ourselves, right?
Well, exactly. But the problem is the systems that be are benefiting from that little equation, and quite frankly, putting out the lower frequencies, trying to postpone the inevitable as long as possible. And structures are really in trouble right now, I see.
I really like the interpretation of evolution, because we kind of think of it like monkey to upright walking being or something like that. But our spiritual evolution, that it does have to do with adapting to the reality of the frequencies and being able to modulate our response to them, and becoming more resonant with the positive ones. So I guess that's where each individual has to choose which way they're going to focus their energies. And it is the lower vibrational frequencies, or the ones that are disharmonic or in denial of things that are happening, they are very difficult to weather. They really are difficult to weather.
Yeah, a lot of our people are suffering greatly for hanging on to something that's beyond its shelf life.
Yeah. Do you think, so you would probably relate our current condition of the earth to why it would be important for us to do this, and why now even maybe more than it, well, I don't know more, because I guess it's always been important, but using techniques to access the other dimensions, shamanism, or in my lingo, psychic development, are really important now. Why would you say that in particular?
Well, again, because we're coming into a time of greater light where there's a lot more information available, there's a lot more frequency bandwidth available. The way we access those things are through our intuition, are through our shamanic skills, are through our esoteric bodies. And we need to, if you're going to go run a race, you're not going to sit on the couch and watch TV if you're going to do a marathon next week, right? You're going to go out and run a little bit every day and try to get prepared. Because if you go out after, fresh off the couch, eating bonbons and try to run the marathon, you're not going to do so well. And the same thing applies here. We are being called to a higher level, or a more expansive level of us as human beings. We go through these cycles, the 12 signs of the zodiac, and each has its different frequencies. And basically what it is a mapping of where we are in the galaxy and the frequencies we're being hit with at any given time. If it were just that simple, it would just be a rerun, right?
Right,
up and down the scale. But it's actually a spiral. And so we have never been in this opportunity before. This is the greatest opportunity that humankind has faced in our existence here on this particular planet. And if we participate, it's going to be amazing what happens to us, I'd say in the next 10 years or less. And those that don't,
that's encouraging. Yes.
Yeah. And those that don't, it's just going to get harder and harder to not participate, because that's what's being supported at this time, frequency-wise.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of brief moments, our dietary habits, and I'm being drawn more and more to, I call it Dr. McDougall's starch solution, because it's, a high carb, low fat, plant-based diet. I know other diets work really well for people, but when you think about returning to indigenous ways of eating, do you have kind of a template that's successful for people when they're trying to adapt their energies?
Well, there's a couple things I'd say about that. One is the first step is getting away from all the artificial stuff, the GMO, and some things we can't get away from. Neonicotinoids cross the blood-brain barrier. They're so fine and refined that you can't detect them. But let's do what we can do, right? And so the closer we get back to the way the food itself was naturally grown before we started interfering with it, before man got their grubbly little hands on it, right?
Yeah.
The better. But within that, there is no one diet that's the right diet. And here's the reason.
Yeah.
We all come from different lineages. We all come from, I'm part Native American. My friend has type A blood. I have type O blood. She likes a whole bunch of vegetables and starches and grains and does fine with it. It's the kiss of death for me. Okay. I have to pretty much stay away from grains and eat raw fruits, vegetables, and meats. Even though I love all the above. So you have to pay attention to what your body is calibrated for. But the first and most important thing is get back to the way it was designed.
Yes, it's whole foods, natural foods, and trying to remember that it's not entertainment to eat.
Yeah. And when you do start eating right, that tendency to eat like an entertainment or a self-medication goes away. The system at hand has polluted our food to keep our frequency down, to keep us subject to the system. It just makes sense.
Yeah. Whether malevolently intentional or whether it's out of just sheer greed and ease and the fastest way to manipulate purchase of foods,
Exactly.
create a market, salt, fat, and sugar,
Create an addiction and you got to market.
Yeah, and then paint it blue or green or orange or whatever.
and
like a fruit.
Yeah, and then make the latest studies show that this is what you need.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think approaching it intuitive. My brother, for instance, he's more Paleolithic in the way that he does. I know you can't really create the Paleolithic diet. There's all kinds of the carrots were really scrawny, but he's achieved a good deal of health with that. And I'm achieving a good deal of health with a high starch, low fat, plant-based diet approach. So it is and cultures have survived all over the world. We really are capable of adaptation. And I guess that goes for the energetic and intuitive range as well. I want to talk just a second before we go. We just have maybe a couple of minutes. I just want to hear what you'd say about personal empowerment.
Personal empowerment is a personal choice. And the lower our frequency, the less our empowerment. The less processed we are, the less power we have. Our power is our ability to manage matter at the quantum level. The more we manage matter at the quantum level, the more we can co-create the life we want. And so it goes all back again to climbing back up that energy frequency scale through watching our diet, through taking care of our mental, what we think about, through our emotional realm, processing our emotions, and to developing our spiritual intuition.
Yeah, and I want to toss in on top of that something you said earlier, that connection with nature. We do forget the seasons and equinoxes and solstices and astrology. We kind of think maybe we're above that or don't need to pay attention to that. What would you say about that?
Oh, that's so hugely important. In fact, in the book, So We're Still Here Now, what I address that at length, because every indigenous culture had a way of recalibrating their people with the energies of the heaven and the earth at any given time. In fact, the Lakotas still go to the Black Hills and do ceremony on specific spots with specific family lines that are aligned to and have ceremony that are aligned to different constellations. Maintaining those equinoxes and solstices, there's a reason that all these mysterious mounds and pyramids have been built all over the planet, right down to Stonehenge, that align with the sun as it comes up, on the equinox or on the solstice, depending on where it was. So it's so hugely important for us to recalibrate. And the equinoxes and solstices and different seasons and celebrations, the Celtic Beltane, that sort of thing, yes. All of those are hugely important. And that's why they're found in every culture.
Oh, Gwilda, I don't have enough time to talk to you. We're out of time, but it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure's all mine.
Reminding our listeners, her website is gwildawiyaka.com, and mine is mediumtracylockwood.com. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please remember that it is never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing. See you next week.